You're looking at a live shot of a rally for Senator Bernie Sanders in Birmingham, Alabama. It is part of the senator's effort on the campaign trail right now to visit key southern states, stumping in no small part for the black vote. The senator stumbled with black voters in 2016. He now knows the only path to winning any of the southern states go through African Americans, as they make up the largest block of the Democratic base. So what does he have to offer this time around? Let's ask Congressman Ro Khanna, Democrat of California, who's also the co-chair of the Sanders presidential campaign. Congressman, in 2016, Senator Sanders was very much behind his opponent, Secretary Clinton, with the black vote. And over the last 2 years, I said when he addressed National Action Network's convention in April, he has aggressively gone into black areas addressing black issues. What is he saying, and what is his strategy and background that he's going to put out that he did not say and do in 2016?
Well, Reverend Sharpton, he's going to speak explicitly about the inequality based on race and how his plans will address that. For example, he has launched the Thurgood Marshall Plan for Equity in Education. The average black student gets $1,800 less in investment in schools than the average white student. Here's why that matters. I was talking with young black students who were pursuing engineering, and they say that there are only 33% of African-American students, of black students, who get calculus in their high school. Bernie Sanders is going to invest billions of dollars in these primary schools, not related to property tax, to deal with that wealth gap.
Now, he has had to deal with that he has had a less than clear position on reparations, as well as he's had to explain his voting for the '94 crime bill that did lead to the incarceration disproportionately in the black community. How does he deal with these two issues that are problematic for him with many black voters?
Well, I'm on John Conyers' bill to create a reparations commission, and I think the senator now has clarified that if he was president, he would call for a commission to deal with reparations. But he's also talking concretely about how you deal with historical racism. He has endorsed Clyburn's plan to have massive investment going to African-American communities. He's talked about massive investment in historically black communities and colleges and making sure that is an investment we're making. He has talked about paying teachers a fair wage and understanding that a lot of those wages will help disproportionately kids in black school districts. And on the crime bill, I think he regrets his vote on that, but he is speaking about dealing on mass incarceration and how we overcome that by the decriminalization of marijuana, by not having as many convictions for drug offenses. And I think he has got a policy of restorative justice.
Now, one of the things that I think is important about what he is doing this time around, as well as Senator Elizabeth Warren, for that matter, is that it's been a long complaint of people like me that a lot of those that call themselves progressive have not been as progressive on the issue of race. They're very clear and effective on the class gap and the wealth gap, but not the race gap, because blacks and in many cases browns are disproportionately impacted differently, even on class issues and wealth issues. And I think by their being leading progressives, and certainly Senator Sanders showing that with the tremendous vote he got in 2016, even though he didn't win the nomination, is to really say to progressives, wait a minute, we cannot be exclusive or non-inclusive while we fight other issues and call ourselves progressives, because this whole kind of new style of speaking about just class and not race does not solve the problem or even address it in many communities.
Well, Reverend Sharpton, you're absolutely right, and it's not the truth. Obviously, race remains a huge issue, in this country. The reality is race influences issues of police violence. Race influences issues of mass incarceration. African Americans are far more likely to be have an arrest record or in jail than people who are Caucasian. Race influences the wealth gap. Sandy Darity and Derek Hamilton's work shows that African Americans have about 7 cents to the dollar. And of course, in schools, we still have so many schools that are basically segregated, and African Americans don't have the same opportunities in school districts because of historical redlining, because of historical segregation. So the senator has always recognized this. As you know, he was arrested back in the civil rights movement, but he is now speaking out more forcefully, more boldly, and more explicitly that race remains a huge issue, as well as economic class.
And in this era of President Trump, where he has operated and performed as president in an us against them kind of context in terms of the social construct, it is even more important that we clearly deal with this issue of race, because we're dealing with a president that not only said there were good people on both sides in Charlottesville when they were marching with clear anti-Semitic neo-Nazi slogans, but they were on their way to stand up for keeping up a statue of a Confederate general who led an army to maintain slavery in this country, and slavery was based on race.
You're absolutely right, Reverend Sharpton, and the president has glorified Andrew Jackson, who, as you know, led the Trail of Tears against Native Americans, and he's held up Confederate leaders who helped perpetuate the system of slavery. So we need to understand that the incidents of hate have increased since his presidency. He has dismantled institutions in the Department of Homeland Security that were tasked of going after hate crimes. We need to restore that funding. We need to look in my district at technology platforms and ask them to do more to go after some of the hate speech and violence and the type of minority suppression that are on those platforms. And so Senator Sanders understands we're at a unique moment in this country where we have to tackle the rise in racism and tackle the rise of hate-inspired violence.
All right. Thank you, Congressman Connor, for being with us tonight. Up next.